Welcome to the Disruptors, the show for manufacturers, wholesalers, and industrial businesses, building their ace factor through digital transformation that actually delivers. Every week, we unpack real stories, strategies, and lessons using PSV thinking, a practical framework focused on one thing: driving profits, enabling scale, and building long term enterprise value. I am Ritesh Saha, CTO at Intuji, and your host. We are here to challenge how you think about tech, operations, and what's possible in your business. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Disruptors. This is the first episode of the Disruptors, and with me, I have Julian Wallace. Welcome to the show, Julian.
Awesome, mate. I'm excited about this and everything that we've got in store for it. There's going to be, I think, some amazing discussions and just, excited to go back and forth with you and thrash out some ideas.
This is our first podcast, and then we are into digital transformation for a long time now. So let's kick things off with digital transformation, how it works and what it is and all that. I wanted to understand, since you're in the digital transformation space for almost a decade now, or more than a decade now, I want to understand what digital transformation is for you and what it isn't.
Good question. It's hard. I guess that's hard to answer. It's a good question, very good question. But it's just digital transformation for me, I guess, is the using technology to help you create a competitive advantage, help you increase profitability, enable scale, and build enterprise value. Right? We obviously internally we call that PSV thinking, so profit, scale, value thinking. But it is outcome-driven digital transformation that helps you build another thing that we use internally, but is your edge factor, right? That, we've had those discussions in the last couple of weeks. It's been really good and really helpful, but it is, how do you use that technology to your advantage to build your edge factor, which is essentially a competitive advantage, cross your X factor, which enables you to do things that other businesses can't do. And at the same time, you're focusing on increasing profitability, enabling scale, and building enterprise value. What most people do with digital transformation or what they think, so they may think about, if there's multiple examples here, it might be like implementing an ERP, developing a customer portal, a warranty portal, building a mobile application, whatever it is. And this is where I argue what digital transformation isn't, is that people like go into, we need to build an app, right? We need to build an on-site app. We need to implement a new ERP or whatever. And they're doing it, for lack of a better way to say it, but they're doing it for the sake of doing it. And what I mean by that there is there's no strategic objective. It's not outcome-driven digital transformation. It's just they had an idea, they saw a new feature, or they jumped the gun and were like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And, I guess ill-informed to a degree. And then they spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, tens of millions even in cases. And then some of the biggest corporates, such as DHL, have spent hundreds of millions doing this, only to figure out that it's not actually what they needed to do. And if they had focused on those three key pillars, e.g., increasing profitability, enabling scale, and building enterprise value, and then working out how can we use tech to pull those levers, that to me is what real digital transformation is.
I think we need to zoom in more into PSV thinking. People need to understand what it is. And then, I totally agree. I also think that people are using or building or doing digital transformations and I call it tech for the sake of tech, actually. If it's not PSV thinking, there's no profit, there's no skill, or there's no brand value, then tech is just a tool, I guess.
It's not worth doing, right? Like at that point, like as in if it's not, and this is where, unless you're non-profit or something, but this, again, I would say that the principles still apply. Like you can change out increased profit for increased efficiency, if that's the way you want to put it, right? Okay, obviously brand value doesn't apply, but our focus is manufacturers, wholesalers, and industrial businesses. And that's who we're speaking to. And at the end of the day, if it's not increasing profit or enabling scale or building enterprise value, or all three, ideally, which is an amazing trifecta, but if it's not influencing one of those, then it's not going to work. Like that's just a fact. I feel, as you said, tech for the sake of tech. And what frustrates me about it, in my experience, is the fact that I guess there's some merit to this and whatever. It's a much more complex discussion than how quickly I'm going to boil it down, I guess. But it's more the fact of we get blamed, or it's companies like us or vendors or whatever get blamed, when in fact, like, you can't just lump the blame on, I guess, one specific company or individual. Now, if you've got a project that's gone terribly wrong, well, that's another story. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the responsibility is on the businesses to be focusing on the right things and thinking this way. Because if you go to someone and say, we want to implement a new ERP, well, yes, okay, if you're working with the right partner and the right vendor, they should be working with you to work out what's best for your business. But I guess the onus lies on everyone that's working on this, but mainly on the business themselves to say, well, what are we doing? Where can we focus to get the biggest return?
Basically, it took us almost a decade to get here, right? And then what was the light bulb moment or any experience that made you think that PSV thinking is the missing point or the missing link? What was the light bulb moment?
Very good question. You're throwing out these at me very hard, I guess. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's been a light bulb moment. I probably was. I don't know. It's been a compounding, a building over time of like the focus from the beginning, even when we. I mean, you remember the website blueprints, right? Like even
Yeah.
the idea behind that, it was the little bit of a seed, right, of PSV thinking. It was like we've always had the principles and things of like we have to do things properly. We need to plan things out. We need to understand. We need to focus on the right areas. But I guess over time, as we've learned, one thing we've learned, and I've learned especially, is that I guess tech for the sake of tech is a waste of time. And even with those in those days, we weren't focusing on we had the right ideas, the right principles, I guess was the way to put it. But essentially, we were more looking at just tech for the sake of tech. Whereas over time, we've learned the biggest return that we can get is focusing on the right levers, I guess, is the point. And it came together, it's come together really with this PSV thinking in the last kind of 12, 18 months, is what I would say, really where we've started to hone it in and really get it clear. But I guess the focus was, we're doing some reflection as a team, and it was just like, how do we boil this down as simply as we possibly can so anyone can understand it? Not only is it communicated to clients, but obviously for us internally, as you're aware, is like, what are we doing as a company, as a partner for clients and teams, and as a team member working here at Intuji, like, how do I bring value to the projects and things that I'm working on? And if you're focusing on those three key areas, that's what it is. And so I guess to answer it in summary, I've gone on a bit of a rant, I guess, but to answer it in summary is the fact of that it's a compounding over time, and it's something that you can only get through experience. And even how we approach projects, I feel now, and our thought process and everything, we can educate people on how they need to think. Absolutely. And that's important. But I think the ideas, the strategies that we take and everything now is impossible to get without just a massive amount of experience. You can't achieve that without having, I guess, a lot of projects and a lot of experience and learning from those things.
Yeah, the mindset where we are right now is it took us some time. We started with tech for the sake of tech. While I was doing this research around this digital transformation thing, 70 to 80% of the digital transformation fail because the industry is all around, oh, they want to use this tech, or new technology, whatever that comes in. They want to use it and experimenting it. Experimenting is good thing, but one other thing I wanted to prefer is that not all the business has unlimited amount of fund and resources to invest on, experiment on.
I agree. And an example, people are already saying, like, what are you talking about? Give me a practical example. And one of them would be AI. Like it's less hype than it was, let's say 2 years ago. Obviously, it's still hype. There's a lot of funding getting done for it and everything, but there's massive potential use cases for it. At the same time, so many people are implementing it in just terrible ways. And we've talked about this even for ourselves around, the key to it is structured data and the data that, that we have to actually provide the context, etc. But so many people are implementing a glorified chatbot which is literally just a reskinned OpenAI. And it's like, well, yeah, like what benefit is that bringing to me? And again, we'll come back to simplicity. Outcome-driven digital transformation. Like, why are you doing it? Tell me very specifically. Okay, so what we're trying to do with this, and an example, I'll actually talk to a potential prospect about this example that we've discussed and worked on before, but is if we build out customer portal, right, for example, and we have all of our what we say generic or stock standard things in a customer portal. But a lot of the challenges I've been presented before are like, oh, but our customers want to send POs, right? They email us or whatever, they want to send POs. It's like, okay, how do we structure the data and the infrastructure so we can essentially just take the emails or the phone calls even, a genuinely good, being the key thing, AI experience, where it processes either that email or phone call, puts it in the portal, in the back end essentially, but basically just I'm oversimplifying here, but you get the point, right? Where essentially they can keep doing the same kind of process they're doing. We're just changing what we do on our end to be more efficient, right? To increase that profit. And suddenly we've built something that scales, right? We can receive 20,000 orders in an hour. Yes, it's going to cost us a bit in processing, but there's no way we could do that as a human team, but suddenly we build a system that's scalable. And I'm using extremes here, but that's the idea, is that, okay, suddenly you can then see, okay, that's a genuine, well thought out business case for our specific business that is going to pull one of these levers, e.g. it's going to increase our profitability and enable scale and build enterprise value if we do it properly. That's outcome-driven digital transformation. Just focusing on the sake of tech for tech's sake and just shiny objects and running around doing it, that is not genuine digital transformation.
It's not digital transformation until unless it's previous thinking and then it's driven. It would be a distraction. It's just a distraction.
100%. Yeah, it costs money, doesn't get results.
Business land up nowhere. It's just a distraction for the business.
Absolutely. And we know this, again, obviously through the extensive projects we're working on and have worked on, but also we're doing this to ourselves, right? We know this, where we do this to ourselves with what we do with clients, and it's the same kind of thing. We've taken on our own initiatives. I remember, without sharing all the details, but previously, we worked on an initiative for the team. And whilst the core idea was okay, it was just fundamentally flawed. It wasn't tied to any business outcomes. It wasn't, and what did it do? It did cost us money. We didn't get anywhere. We didn't achieve anything with it. And we actually went backwards. Like, we lost time, we lost money. Whereas now how we're approaching things is completely different mindset. And you can see is a completely different prospect on return on investment, basically.
Yeah, totally know what you're relating to, the database design we were working on. While I was preparing for this podcast, it was the database design what we were working on. I was totally relating to it actually. I was like, now we are in the right direction. Initially, we were just doing, myself, I could say, is like embedding technology here and there. There wasn't outcome driven. Now, the thought process is different. Is this technology, is this bit, what is the profit or what value is creating? Do you have any client experience that we can share with our audience here, which was like very expensive tech for the sake of tech event?
Yeah, there's a few examples I've off the top of my head. We've obviously worked with various clients, I guess. Obviously not going to give away specific details, but just in general, there's been lots of portals or builds, app builds. I've seen app builds in the millions, for what I'm going to say smaller companies, but, not corporates or anything like that there, where it was significant investments for those businesses, and millions for any business is still a significant investment. The point of it is that everything that we've been talking about, it was like, we just thought, we needed to build an app and we had this idea and they said we needed to do this. And so we did it. And then, it didn't get anywhere. And like when you dive into it, there was no strategic objectives. It wasn't outcome driven. And on top of all of that, they had a bad partner they were working with, which is, a lot of the responsibility lands on them, but not only them. But the idea is that where was the business case? Where were we tying this back to, to what we actually needed to achieve? And who was the one that actually was like, okay, these are the specific cases of how this is going to drive those levers, pull those levels in the right direction. One of the worst ones publicly that we can talk about is, I don't know every single detail of this here, but I know DHL tried to do a SAP implementation. From memory, it was around 400 million, just off the top of my head, that they spent on that implementation, and it failed. Obviously we're not part of it. There would have been two sides to every story. There would have been reasons why, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't change the fact that fundamentally, even if it was 40 million, 100 million, whatever, a massive amount of money was spent on something that essentially got scrapped. And can you imagine how many resources could have been deployed, right, for that amount of money? And if it was done properly and it was actually focused on those outcomes. Now, when you're dealing with a corporate of that scale, of the global, of course, it's incredibly difficult. There's so many moving parts, right? It's not to say it's easy. It's not the point. But if there wasn't a clear business case and a roadmap to success and return on investment, why was it started? And then secondly, if there was, then where did it go wrong? I guess that's what I'd say. And there's so many businesses, without banging on like a broken record or sounding cliche or whatever, but is the fact of it's already what we've discussed. It's tech for the sake of tech, and it's not focusing on outcomes. It's features over outcomes, which is just the complete wrong way. And I'll tell you now, to sum up the client experience, everyone that we've seen that's been bad has been exactly that. Now, there are specific cases where if you've had a bad technical partner or implementation partner or something like that, where builds have gone wrong and things like that there, but that's that's not really what we're talking about here. Obviously, that is just execution of what we're talking about. So if you've got bad execution, then obviously that's not going to work. But no matter what, the problems and the client's issues that we've had and everything else have still come back to this point. Like people have released, let's take for example, a customer portal, a significant amount of investment. One of the clients we actually re-platformed, e.g. we rebuilt the whole thing, but was the fact that it was built terribly. That was one of the things. You could speak more about that on the engineering side, but that's just keeping it simple. That's what it was. But just the whole thing, like just, it was like, let's add this feature, let's add this feature, let's add this. And I was asking, like, have you done customer research? What are we actually trying to business wise? Like, what's the goals here? Like, what are we actually trying to affect? And a lot of people say, oh yeah, we want to increase sales. That's as helpful as a hole in the head. Like, we need to be very specific to say, we're going to get 80% of our revenue through digital in 3 years. That's more specific. Or we want to generate 50 million through digital in this year, or we want to onboard 100 or 1,000 new distributors, and it should be all digital. All of it, the entire onboard, whatever it is, it's something very specific. And then we reverse it. So, okay, we're going to do 80% of our sales digitally, which means that we've got no sales at the moment digitally. I'm just saying as a hypothetical. Suddenly the thought process is, what needs to happen to make that happen? Right. And it's not just, oh, we need to add a login feature. We need to add this. We need to go and speak to customers. And then we need to think practically as to the entire user experience journey to say, okay, coming back to our edge factor, what can we build in a way that no one else has done it, that makes it as easy as possible for them to do business with us?
While some digital transformation fail, it's not only about losing the money. The company's morale, the team members' morale also goes down. It's not only costing money, whole morale goes down. And one other thing I wanted to add here is that one of the clients we were working with, like, they wanted to build everything, but with the assumptions. Their customer might need this. Until and unless we don't do proper research what their customer actually needs, they won't use it. With assumptions, we can't build it. What do you think about it?
And it's assumptions with, totally agree with what you're saying, but I would just, again, just simplify it. It's assumptions across everything. Assumptions like, we need this feature. Well, do you? Right? It's assumptions that this person understands what I'm saying. They understand my business logic. Like, we see that so much time where, you know, clients just expect you to understand their business. Now, it's our job to, as quickly as possible, grasp that. Couldn't agree more. There's just assumptions, communication breakdowns and assumptions across everything. So we assume that clients want this, but we don't actually research it. When you're working with a partner or a vendor, you assume they know this, but you've never told them. As an engineer, we assume this rather than seeking clarification from the client or something like that. Whatever it is, absolutely agree. We just assume that we know what we need to do. And again, there's no clear, I guess, strategic roadmap and or business case, research and everything else that we can point back to and say, this particular feature is going to move the needle in the right direction in regards to increasing profitability. More specifically, it's going to get us towards this North Star. That's one of the other things to talk about, which is like the overall objective of what we're actually trying to do with this, whatever initiative it is. And we can clearly demonstrate that. Most of the time with most teams, you go to them and say, okay, so why are you actually doing it? Like, oh yeah, we thought, you know, we had this great idea for this app, and so we just started building it. And then we wonder why, like, we're 2 years down the road, we're way over budget, and we've released something that no one wants to use. And not to keep ranting on, but it's come to me now as we've been talking about as well. One key part of this, I will say, for anyone listening, focusing on, it takes more investment and time and resource than you realize to do something properly. What I mean by properly is not release a crappy app, a crappy experience. What we're talking about here is not just building a new website or building a portal. We're talking way further on than that and talking about embedding technology and digital first in the business and creating what we call your edge factor. But that is, you're creating a blend of technology, your own offering, your digital experience, all of that blended into one, your own platform, which is the reason you can do business. And it's the number one selling point. It becomes the number one selling point for your business. In order to achieve that, then you need to invest, you need to have the right partner, and it takes more time and effort than people realize. And why I say that is so often people think that, oh yeah, it's easy, we can just build an app. Oh, this person's done an app. They don't realize the level of effort that needs to go into it. Not only just to create something, that's one thing, but to create something that is exceptional and incredibly well designed, incredibly well thought out. It takes a lot of time and resource. That shouldn't be something that scares you. It should be something that you're aware of, most importantly. And from the fact that when you get it right, the payoff is huge. That's why it's not easy to do. And then people go and release these crappy apps that have been built by teams with no experience. They haven't put any effort. They cut down the budget. You know, they're looking for the cheapest option. They're looking for the, you know, everything. And then they wonder why they're releasing, oh yeah, well, it's a waste. Oh, and we knew it was a waste of time. It's like, yeah, like no joke, you haven't given it the proper resources and attention and time it needs for it actually to function properly.
One thing, like while we are talking this, while you select client or while you are talking to the potential clients, do you even like rate them? How do we disqualify a client?
It's a very interesting question. It's good rating, qualification. We do absolutely. The key points to it is: are they focused on growth, and do they genuinely believe that technology can help them grow as a business and do things that they can't do without it? If that makes any sense. If someone comes and says, "Oh, we're just looking to build a new website," then we're not the company to work with them. Right. As in, if you're happy with the status quo and you just want to build a website, then you're unlocking 5% of the potential of what tech could do for your business. Less than that, 1%. If someone comes to me and says, and I'll just give you a roundabout example from actual examples that have come to us, but they come to us and say, we've got this problem in the business. It could be about their design flow. It could be about increasing average order value per customer. They could have had their own idea, and we've had ideas for where people are actually bringing, we're starting to get into the hardware space and IoT and that kind of thing, where people are they're blending that software with that hardware and building their own offerings in that regard. But they're like, hey, we've got this, we see an opportunity here. And the opportunity could be doubling the business. It could be a new product line. It could be all of this stuff. And we know if we do it right, we'll get the returns, but we don't know how to get there. Essentially, we've got an idea. What can we do to get there? Essentially, is this worth exploring? And is there potential here that we can grab? If someone comes and says, "Oh, we want to build an app. We know exactly what we need. We've only got X amount of money, and give us a quote." It's like, well, you don't know exactly what you need. You've already decided what needs to be done. 99% of the time, they haven't even done customer research, or the research they've done is extremely surface level. They send out one survey saying, why do you do business with us? Or if we released an app, what would you want? Don't get me wrong, it's helpful, but that's the level of information. If you're coming with that mindset, then you're already off on the wrong foot. You should be asking the question of like setting the vision of like, if we could get here, if that makes any sense. If we could get to this point, right? And imagine, right, if we had 80% of our orders digitally, what would we have to do? Or if we were to double the business overnight, what would break first? How do we fix that with tech? That is a completely different mindset to, oh, we want to build a website, we don't really care about it, and here's exactly what we want, or we want to build an app, or we want to do this. It's a mindset that it's a fixed mindset, that is, where it's like, I already know what we want, give us a price quote. It's like saying, you used a good example the other day where you're like, you can go and buy a Hyundai off the shelf or whatever like that there, or a Rolls Royce. Yes, there are, you can say, flaws in that analogy, but more the point of saying, some people say, well, yeah, the Rolls Royce is just a premium thing, but it doesn't necessarily get you from A to B any quicker. Yeah, absolutely. I get that. But the thought process is the fact that you are creating something that actually works and you're giving the Rolls Royce experience to your customers, your employees, right? Whoever the end target user is, they feel like they're using the Rolls Royce, which makes them want to deal with you. That's your edge factor. If they feel like they're getting the Hyundai, everyone else has the Hyundai. Why am I going to use you? Worst case, it's an old Hyundai that breaks down every 10 kilometers. So instead, they ring you up and get a taxi, right? Like that's the point. And that's the idea, is that then, okay, yeah, we provide a taxi that goes, but it's inefficient. The point is, build the experience of the Rolls Royce, then use that to scale. Again, it's not the perfect analogy, I get that, but I guess that's the point, and that's what we look out for. And I guess it's not just like us qualifying clients when projects come to us. That's part of it, I guess. Well, it's a big part of it. But I can tell immediately, just from, it's nothing to do with me, but it's just the experience of doing it so many times, who's got the right mindset. Right. Of like, I guess let's just dumb it down, simplify it even. People that want advice and are willing to learn. They say, we see an opportunity. We want someone to help us. How can you help? That versus we just want to build, we know what we need, or it just needs a simple login screen and we just want to add orders and that's it. Great. You're building what everyone else is building. Fantastic. You can do that. That's great for you. You're welcome to do that. But that's not going to establish you as the leader in your industry. That's just a fact.
If someone comes to you to build an experience for the customer, we are there for them. A good experience. Experience is bad also, I get it, but good experience, yeah.
The way I'd sum it, it's not even just the customers, right? It's the employees, whatever it is. It could be the operations team, whatever. Like we've worked on these projects where people have had nearly entirely paper-based operations workflows and project management processes and all that, nearly entirely paper-based, or they've been in digital systems where there's 15 of them and there's no consistency, nothing, a lot of inefficiency. And then essentially we're trying to help them go, okay, again, how do we turn this into part of your edge factor, where we build out a platform that runs the operations and gives you insights such as that you would never been able to get if you hadn't have built that yourself. And again, a lot of people have tried this and failed and say, oh, it's a waste of time, it doesn't work. That's the point. It wasn't done properly, right? Weren't focusing on the right things. And it's so complex, but it's like, don't start with how do we use X tech or X feature to do X? Start with what do we want to do? Where's the biggest problems? And then how could we potentially solve them, right? It could be sales, it could be operations, it could be customer experience, customer service. How could we not only solve them, but solve them in a way that, again, right, coming back to the edge factor thing, no one else has done, that is incredibly hard to copy and means that people do business with us because of that very reason. That's the point. And it's the same, take the business part out of it, and it's the same thing within team members. And we're doing the same process to ourselves right now, right? Like, how do we build an employee experience, a team experience? Obviously there's culture, right? There's benefits, there's all of these things that outside of this that play a part. Absolutely. But on top of that, if your mindset, even the point of us saying with what we're doing internally right now, the mindset helps the culture. The whole point of it is like building something where it's like team members want to be here, right? If that makes sense. And then how do we use that tech to further that objective, to make their lives as easy as possible, to coach them, to help them improve, to give them the best experience? And that's what we're doing right now. Like,
It's not just we trying to implement in our client's business. We try to implement, and then that thought process on us, it makes us like the thought process, even the ace factor thing, the PSV thinking. While we were discussing for the first time, it gave me goosebumps. The way we thought it, the applications we were building, oh, it makes more sense now. So everyone has like a reason to work for.
yeah. And then we're going to be taking that same thing and delivering the same, it's the same principle to client. I'll be the first to admit, we've made so many mistakes dealing with clients. We've learned from them. There's been clients that have had bad experiences, clients have had great experiences. But one thing I will say is we've learned from them, and now we're in a position now where, we have got to a point where we're not perfect, right? By any stretch of the imagination, we've still got a lot to learn. But I guess the point of it is we're learning from mistakes and we're constantly improving. And our mindset is, how do we do in the industry? And what we're doing, how do we give a client experience that no one else can give and that is so hard to replicate? And if you take that mindset, if you let yourself go and don't limit yourself, the possibilities are endless. And now at the end of the day, people come back and say, oh yeah, but then your head's in the clouds and you're just coming up with these random ideas that aren't practical. It's not the point. When you bring PSV thinking in it, it solves that problem. It's like, okay, well, which part of this actually is going to move the needle? Okay, let's focus on that. So it's not just about coming up with random head in the cloud ideas that are completely stupid and shiny objects and everything else. It's about setting a vision of where you're like, it would be amazing, would be incredible for us to be able to get to this position of experience, or again, not focus on features. It's focusing on the outcome, right, of what we want to actually achieve. You bring in the PSV thinking, that aligns you to the business. And suddenly it's like, this is a no-brainer.
Until and unless you don't know where to go, PSV thinking gives you where to go. What's the vision? Where's the goal? Technology take is just a pathway.
It's a means to an end, right?
But you need to know where to go. A lot of business is doing, I want to drive this car, so let's drive it. But you don't know where to go with that car. PSV thinking gives you the where to go, the definition to that.
Using a practical example here, and not to pick on any specific platform, but let's just say we'll pick on two of them for the sake of this example. But if you're a Shopify agency, what do you recommend if you only work with Shopify, then you only work with Shopify? Don't get me wrong, there's a market for that, but it's not this market. It's not at this level that what we're talking about, right? And not to say that Shopify is bad. It's not. Like, we've used it before in projects where it makes sense. The point of it is you're limited to that thinking. And yes, you can bring other technologies in and all of that. I'm talking about the people that are specifically focused on one thing. You say, for example, okay, we only do NetSuite ERP implementations. Great. That is fantastic when you very much need a NetSuite ERP implementation. That's the only thing you need. But in my opinion, so many of these things, and whether it's Shopify, NetSuite, any other technology, whatever it is, so many of the wrong things get done that don't drive those outcomes. And what I mean by that there is like you go and implement a new ERP and you get you 5% further ahead, 10% further ahead or whatever. And I'm not saying you shouldn't implement ERPs either. That's not my point. All I'm saying is so much of the time we're focusing on the wrong things. Had we even kept going with the old ERP and built our own brand value, if that makes sense, with maybe we built our own platform that was layered on top of it, we could have solved the issues that we were having and built out an experience that no one even thought was possible. And this is what, like, I think most people, this is why it doesn't even get thought about. Most people don't know what's possible in these positions. And most, to be honest, people in our position, I would actually argue, don't have the mindset. Not all of them, I'm saying, but there are a lot of people, they're just thinking, oh, so we're going to implement X, Y, and Z, so that's what we focus on. It's like that they're not thinking what's in the best interest for this business long term, holistically looking at how do we actually help them go from 100 million to 150 and not increase headcount and reduce, all of these kind of things where, and again, I'm overgeneralizing and people be like, oh yeah, there's heaps of people that do that. Yes, I get that. But at the end of the day, you need to focus on the outcomes and then work backwards from there. And that's why I'm saying I do see issues with focusing like businesses that go to, they're like, oh, we need to build a portal. Even that kind of scenario, oh, we need to build a customer portal. They go and speak to an agency that does specific technology. You're limited to that. Like there's nothing else to say. You're limited to that. Not only that, typically, and again, overgeneralize, but I'm typically saying their mindset is all in, this is how we did it in the past. This is how we can as quickly make profit from this and implement with Shopify. It's not how do we help this business create their edge factor. That's not their process. Their process is how can they fit you in their mold as to, oh yeah, great. You've got a B2B portal, but guess what? It's the same as everyone else. It's no different. You're the exact same as everyone. You've got no competitive difference. You're just doing the basics. There's no thought process challenging the business and even saying, why are you thinking about doing this? We should be focusing on this, right? And the majority of the times, just to come back to that, I'm ranting on way too much, but the majority of the times clients come back to us is they'll come to us even with an idea or a thought process. And what we actually end up focusing on, yes, the seed is there from the original idea and everything, but they are like, wow, I've never thought of it that way. And that's the point. Our job is not just to say, oh, give us a bullet point list of what you want. Our job is to say, what's the business? Where's the opportunities? How can we help you use tech to unlock that?
That's actually the best mindset, actually. The third process is our AS factor.
And our IntuGOS that we're building, right? So and we're digitizing all of that, absolutely. But and as you said earlier, for anyone listening, we put ourselves through the exact same things we do for clients. Like it's no different. Like we're doing the exact same thing that we're doing for anyone that we work with to ourselves. We're behind where we would want to be with that. I'll just say that openly, ourselves, what we want to do, but we're making rapid progress in getting up to speed of where we want to be. But it isn't some fang-dangle ideas it's all rooted in experience.
One thing I wanted to add here is like we as a Intuzi, it's not that we might not ever suggest Shopify if it's the case that that specific tool solves your problem, then we would. The problem is exactly fits in, then it's a solution. If not, we will first dig into your problem and then we will go, oh, this is the skill they want. This is the client needs this kind of a skill. Okay, so if this is the skill, we go this tool. The problem defines the tool. It's not the tool defines the problem.
And I would even add to that to say not necessarily even the problem. It's the opportunity. It's the vision defines what we use. Most people need to work with us to map out the vision and work out, okay, actually, what are we trying to solve here? What are we trying to do? And to be clear for the record, got nothing against Shopify, nothing against NetSuite. We do a lot of work with both of them. It's nothing to do with, I just use them as examples. I do have something against Magento, but that's another story. But it's the fact of saying like the majority of platforms, we're technology agnostic, to use a fancy word, but it's nothing to do with the technology. And again, it's just, we're using it to illustrate a point that if you focus on the tech and you think that, oh, someone else has said they use Shopify and it's brilliant, or someone else this and this, that, and everything else, or this agency said, you're already focusing on the wrong thing. You're already off on the wrong foot. The whole thing should be, and to keep it simple, is how do we create our edge factor using technology? And your edge factor basically means an experience, a platform, anything that you can give to clients that cannot be easily copied and replicated, is unique to you, means that people do business with you because of that very reason, right? And it enables you to increase profit, enable scale, and build enterprise value. Now, just a caveat to that, most people's edge factor, especially with technology, is a website, a portal. That's their standard. That is just it's an expected at this point. It's a given. One example I use, and I've used this product a lot of times, is Wise. We first were working together. We actually used World Remit, actually was the first one we ever used, but then very quickly we moved across to TransferWise, right? And we've used it for what, me and you've been working together for 9 years now. I reckon it's probably 8 years, to try and do the calculation, probably 8 years maybe off the top of my head that we've been using TransferWise. Then they've rebranded to Wise. When they rebranded to Wise, they're one of the brands that I think got it absolutely right. Like, it is so easy to use. There's other products out there. There's other competitors out there. I don't even consider them because Wise's experience is their edge factor. Literally, like, they are just so easy to use. Everything is well thought out. I don't need to go to a branch or do this or everything. I do what I want whenever I want. It works. It's intuitive, and their experience, their application, their product is why I use Wise. And while we use Wise, we use it for work as well, right? I use it personally, we use it for work. Another example here in Australia specifically is Bunnings have PowerPass, right? Which is their, you know PowerPass, you know Bunnings, but is their application. I think it's okay. I personally believe it could be dramatically improved. But to a degree, that is, what we would regard as Bunnings' edge factor. Yes, they have the lowest prices. They do the price beat. I wouldn't say necessarily, I guess they are probably a monopoly, but not necessarily a monopoly, but they're a massive company here in Australia in the hardware space. And the point of it is that, yes, they've got all these other things that, yes, they've got their returns, they've got their lowest prices. Don't get me wrong. And a lot of people have complaints about the PowerPass. Not everyone uses them for PowerPass. There's a lot of customers that go in there and just purchase what they need and walk out. We're not saying that that's not the case for that specific business. But the point is, how do we use something like PowerPass as an example to just further the objectives of the organization? Are they really achieving everything they possibly could with it, if that makes sense? And that's where, again, Bunnings, being that size, it's less of a threat, because when you're that big, right, it obviously is less of a threat. Still a threat, but less of a threat. What I would say as a smaller, like a medium business, this is actually come to my mind. I actually say this to companies as well that we talk to about potential clients is, let's just imagine, take your business, replicate it, same customer service, same product, same everything, turned up tomorrow as a competitor. Just realistically, it's a thought exercise. But they had the means and resources behind them, and they were investing heavily in creating this edge factor in their digital transformation. And it wasn't bad, it was good. How quickly would you be able to survive, and what risk would that expose? Doesn't mean you're going out of business necessarily immediately if you don't do anything. That's not the point. We're not trying to be doomsday here, but it's a thought process to say, if that happens, we're exposed, and we probably should start thinking about reducing it. And on top of all of that, it's not just about the risks and the problems. It's like, what are you missing out on opportunities that other people aren't taking, that if you just did stuff properly and gave that level of experience, you would get?
One thing, when you are talking about Bunnings, I've been to Bunnings. We have been to Bunnings together. What I saw is like their storage units are properly planned out, and physically buying there is an experience. Going through, this everything is sorted out. But I've seen you use app, and I've also gone through the app as well, and it's not the same experience. That's where I thought, like, okay, physically, like, the store is properly managed, everything. Now the shopping experience, online shopping experiences works, but not an experience, I would say.
Agree. And that I would just say, and if we want to talk specifically about Bunnings, and that's the point, is like, if anyone's listening from Bunnings, it's we can take this as feedback. But I guess, like, one of the things, for example, and they haven't obviously refactored and re-architected. They've obviously had I don't know the exact tech stack, how they're using it, but they run PowerPass, which is the trade side of the business, obviously. And what technology they're using, I'm not sure, but they got a very antiquated, how they're using their auth, right? Their authentication essentially obviously is incredibly frustrating. And I don't remember the exact thing, but if you forget resetting your password, if you enter into the PowerPass app too many times, it locks you out, and then you have to call customer support. Next thing is, if you link your PowerPass to more than 2 devices, you have to call customer support to get them to. And now, I haven't tried this in the last couple of months. That maybe changed, and I haven't looked into. But again, that's what I remember. Right? It wasn't easy as where everything was sorted. Like, and even do you know those applications where you like, it feels like a website? Do you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you go to the Wise app, we use that. We've already done it. It's an app and it works, right? Like, but then you go to something and you're like, this feels like a website that's been made, right? Like, it's not an app where it just works. And I guess that's what I feel they could improve on that. Anyway, I don't know how we even got onto Bunnings. I was simply trying to use it as an example to say, to me, their edge factor digitally, they've obviously got their retail. So this is more on the trade side. I'm talking on the trade side because that's more related to what we do, but is the PowerPass, and that's how do they, their objective should be, how do they use that, which they've already got their own dedicated teams and they're doing, no doubt, looking at these things every day, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement there. And it's the same thing with obviously we get to travel a bit with work and things like that there, and you use different airlines applications, right? You would have had this as well. You use their applications and some one-eyed. Qantas is getting better, but like it's just parts of it are still websites. So you go to book a flight and it opens their website, if that makes sense, rather than just doing it in the application. And they would have reasons for that. No doubt it's obviously their architecture, I'm assuming, because it obviously was easier for them to do that than trying to build it into the actual application themselves, was just to use their existing infrastructure. But I don't know, it just makes a difference. It does make a difference. Like when you know things are so easy. So there's a reason Amazon, and I know, again, I'll talk from experience, I use Amazon a lot to order things because, again, do they have the nicest UI and things like that there? No, not necessarily, but they have built a massive business off the back of just making it convenient and easy. How convenient and easy are you making it for your team, for your customers and everything else, basically? And that's a hard question to answer.
We can talk about this and then I can learn all day long. The audience, whoever is listening to us, can learn a lot. But it's now time to wrap this up for this week. And then to wrap this up, I would like to give Julian an opportunity to summarize in a minute or two how digital transformation works, what you need to consider to make it work actually.
I guess my advice to any business listening would be you need to focus on how are you using technology to create your edge factor, which is what we've talked about this whole episode. And your edge factor being your competitive edge, how you're making it more convenient, how you making it easy for your customers, your team, whatever it is, how are you using tech to build that edge factor, create that edge factor using PSV thinking, which is essentially outcome-driven digital transformation. You have to focus on increasing profitability, enabling scale, and building enterprise value. And if you're not focusing on those three key areas, then it's not going to work, right? It's as simple as that. It's not easy to do. The thought process is as simple as that, where we need to focus. Working out how we actually create that genuine edge factor. Again, we said earlier, the edge factor, some people think it's releasing a new website with a new design. That's not your edge factor. Everyone does that. Everyone's got the capability to do that. The edge factor is when you've got people talking about you like we're talking about Wise. That is what your edge factor is. That is when you know, okay, we've actually achieved that level of success, I guess, with this type of stuff. And if you do it properly and you focus on those three key areas, you'll have success with it.
Thanks, Zillion. Thanks for summarizing this. Thanks, guys, for joining in. Hope you guys have a great day ahead. And we will join you guys next week, same time, same day.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. That's a wrap on this episode of The Disruptors. If you are serious about unlocking your ACE factor, the thing that sets your business apart and helps it grow sustainably, don't forget to follow, share, and leave a quick review. We will be back next week with more real-world insights and no-flop conversations on how to rethink your systems, modernize operations, and build value that lasts. Until then, stay sharp, stay focused, and keep disrupting.